He called me into the room the night before Series D. No HR. No counsel. No board member. Just him. The CEO. 3 years in the role. 2 years of hype. A man carried by charisma and connections. He didn't waste time. Let's be clear, he said, voice flat. You were just a token title. That was it. His opening. His justification. His smirk carried the rest. I had been compliance director since the beginning. Every license, every filing, every audit. My initials were stamped on every government form that allowed this company to operate. My work wasn't optional. It was mandatory. But to him? Decoration. You should know, he continued, investors don't care about filings. They care about vision. They care about founders who can sell fire. Compliance doesn't close funding. I do. His hand tapped his chest as he said it. The gesture was rehearsed. A move for pitch meetings, stolen from some keynote speaker. I didn't answer. Silence unsettled him. He leaned forward. Don't look surprised. You got your salary. You got your title. That's more than most. Severance is waiting. A clean resume line. Take it. That was the tone. He thought I should thank him. He sat back, satisfied with his own performance. His eyes told me I was already irrelevant. The arrogance was complete. He thought firing me erased the past. He thought a single stroke cut me from the company's future. He thought compliance was a checkbox. Nothing more. I let him believe it. He ended with one final push. You'll land somewhere else. But understand this, compliance doesn't win funding rounds. Vision does. And I own that. Then he stood. Closed his laptop. Left without a handshake. The door clicked shut. I stayed in my chair. I didn't move. I replayed his words. Token title. 15 years in regulatory work, reduced to that. He had no idea. He had no idea the filings were more than paper. He had no idea one signature carried weight beyond his pitch deck. He had no idea what Series D actually demanded. He thought optics replaced truth. He thought erasing me gave investors a cleaner story. He thought nothing would surface. He was wrong. Because in every round, one question always comes. The same question, in every diligence call, from every serious VC. When did the audit start? A single date. That's all it takes. Not vision. Not charisma. Not a pitch. One date. That date was mine to give. And when it surfaced, nothing could save him. I remembered the moment clearly. The external auditor's letter. The initiation stamp. Filed under my watch, logged under my signature. The board never tracked it. The CEO never read it. But the investors would. They always did. I had stayed silent in that room. Not out of weakness. Out of strategy. Silence unsettles men like him. They think it's defeat. They never suspect its preparation. He believed I was finished. But I knew tomorrow belonged to me. Because tomorrow, they would ask. And I would answer. It wasn't the severance he offered that mattered. It wasn't the resume line. It wasn't his attempt to cut me out before the celebration of Series D. What mattered was the clause I lived by. Compliance is not a department. It is the foundation. He had built his empire on hype. I had built the rails that allowed it to exist. And tomorrow, the investors would discover which one truly mattered. I looked at the clock that night. Hours before the call. Hours before the boardroom filled with bankers, analysts, and venture partners. The CEO would step in, polished, rehearsed, confident. He would pitch growth curves, expansion slides, glossy projections. He would lean on charisma, storytelling, illusion. And then it would come. The one question. When did the audit start? And I would be the only one who could answer. Not him. Not the CFO. Not the board. Only me. A single date. That was my weapon. That night, I didn't feel anger. Not yet. What I felt was inevitability. The inevitability that arrogance blinds men. The inevitability that oversight punishes ignorance. The inevitability that truth does not vanish because someone mocks you. He thought he had buried me under humiliation. But in reality, he had handed me control. Because tomorrow wasn't his victory. Tomorrow was his collapse. And I was ready to deliver it. Series D call. Dozens of faces on the screen. The CEO led the pitch. Sharp suit. Practiced words. He spoke in slogans, not numbers. Investors nodded. Some bored. Some skeptical. Then the lead VC handed control to his analyst. She asked one question. When did the audit start? Silence. The CEO blinked. Looked off camera. He hadn't expected it. He muttered something vague. Recently. Process is ongoing. But she didn't move on. She repeated. The exact start date, please. His face froze. He didn't have it. Because I had it. Because I filed it. He looked at his CFO. Nothing. He looked back at the screen. Stalling. I opened my laptop. I drafted one line. No emotion. No commentary. Just the date. I sent it. Directly to the analyst. She read it. Her eyes sharpened. She whispered to the lead VC. He leaned forward. Asked again. Is this correct? The CEO's jaw locked. He tried to spin. Those filings aren't material. They don't affect. The lead VC cut him off. Voice flat. Cold. Final. Shut it down. Silence on the call. Silence heavier than words. Investors logged off one by one. 2 years of pitching. Gone in seconds. $200 million. Vaporized. All from one text. One date. The truth they buried. The call ended. No goodbyes. No thanks. Just screens going black. I sat in my chair. No applause. No comfort. Only the silence of what had just collapsed. The CEO didn't call me. The CFO didn't call me. No one from leadership spoke to me. But within minutes, I knew the chain reaction had started. The lead VC wasn't casual. He didn't say, pause. He didn't say, review. He said, shut it down. That command meant more than ending the round. It meant lawyers. It meant auditors digging deeper. It meant the fund pulling every file, every note, every whisper about the company. I knew how VCs work. They don't just cut money. They build a wall around risk. And our company had just become radioactive. Phones started buzzing. Investors called investors. Networks moved faster than executives ever admit. I wasn't on those calls, but I knew the rhythm. One fund pulling out triggers 2. 2 becomes 6. By the end of the day, no one will touch you. At 3 p.m., the CEO finally called. His voice wasn't calm. It wasn't strategic. It was rage. What did you send them? I said, the audit start date. He exploded. You undermined me. You destroyed months of work. Do you realize what you've done? I didn't answer his accusation. I repeated my statement. The analyst asked for the date. I gave the date. Facts, not emotion. He screamed louder. This was supposed to be my round. My moment. You've sabotaged everything. His words told me more than he intended. My moment. Not the company's moment. His ego had always been the product. I let him rant. I didn't give him more than silence. Finally, he hung up. I knew what would follow. That night, I received an email. Board emergency meeting, 8 a.m. The subject line carried weight. Boards don't meet at 8 a.m. unless it's survival. I prepared. Not by gathering allies. Not by writing speeches. But by pulling my files. I had the paper trail. I had the timeline. Every request for audit, every ignored deadline, every shortcut leadership took. If the board wanted truth, I had it. If they wanted a scapegoat, they'd try to hang me. Either way, I was ready. 8 a.m. sharp. Board members on video. Some in offices, some in cars, some barely awake. But all serious. The CEO tried to control the room. He opened fast, blaming me. She went rogue. She blindsided us. She misrepresented our process. The CFO echoed him. Weak voice, nervous eyes. Yes, she overstepped her role. Then the lead VC spoke. His words cut through the noise. She answered a direct question. You didn't. Silence. No one defended the CEO. Not even his allies. The board asked me directly. Confirm the date of the audit start. I gave it again. Simple. Precise. Documented. They asked if leadership had been informed. I said yes. Multiple times. I named the dates. I referenced the memos. Each point backed by record. Each statement verifiable. The CEO tried to interrupt. The VC shut him down. Let her finish. By the end, the pattern was clear. I wasn't reckless. I wasn't rogue. I was the only one telling the truth. The board broke for private discussion. 15 minutes. Cameras off. Mics muted. When they returned, the tone had shifted. One member spoke first. We're suspending the Series D indefinitely. External auditors will be brought in immediately. Another added. Until further notice, all strategic decisions require board approval. Then the lead VC delivered the blow. CEO and CFO, we're convening a governance review. Consider yourselves under investigation. The CEO's face burned red. The CFO paled. Neither spoke. Finally, the VC looked at me. We'll need your full cooperation. I nodded. I didn't celebrate. I didn't gloat. I just agreed. Because I knew this was only the beginning. After the meeting, chaos spread through the company. Slack threads filled with confusion. Rumors swirled. Some thought the round was delayed. Others feared layoffs. Most didn't know the truth. But leadership knew. Their empire had cracked. The CEO stormed through calls, blaming anyone he could reach. The CFO went silent, avoiding messages. Middle managers whispered about compliance issues. And me? I stayed quiet. I didn't explain. I didn't defend. I just worked. Because I knew silence was stronger than spin. That night, I reviewed more files. Not just the audit. Contracts. Side letters. Executive bonuses. I found gaps. I found payments misaligned with policy. I found risk hiding in plain sight. Things I had raised before. Warnings ignored. Emails buried. Now, those same documents weren't just ignored. They were evidence. I organized them. Labeled them. Prepared them. Because I knew auditors would ask. And when they asked, I would hand them the truth. The next day, the CEO called again. This time, no rage. This time, desperation. We can fix this. Don't make it worse. Stay quiet until we get control back. I let him talk. He dangled promises. Equity. Titles. Position. Empty gifts. From a man whose empire was collapsing. When he finished, I said one sentence. The truth is already out. He had no reply. He hung up. I knew he would try to survive. But survival wouldn't be his choice anymore. By the end of week 1, the fallout was undeniable. Investors pulled. Vendors hesitated. Recruiting froze. Employees whispered in hallways. Slack channels quieted. The air shifted from confidence to fear. The CEO still performed. He gave speeches about resilience. He sent emails about temporary headwinds. But behind closed doors, he was trapped. The board didn't trust him. The investors had abandoned him. And the auditors were coming. All triggered by one line of text. One date. The truth no one wanted to face. And I knew. This wasn't the end. This was only stage 1. Because the Series D wasn't just funding. It was survival. Without it, the entire structure would crack. And I had seen enough to know. Once cracks begin, collapse follows. The Series D call began with energy. The boardroom had a wall of screens, each showing investors from New York, San Francisco, London, and Singapore. Everyone expected the deal to close smoothly. $200 million was about to enter the company. The CEO leaned forward with a grin. This is just formality. We're already oversubscribed. He spoke as if it was already done. The other executives nodded. They wanted the illusion of control. But then the lead VC's analyst spoke. He was calm, precise. Before we finalize, I need clarity. When did the external audit officially start? The room shifted. Small detail, simple question, but everyone froze for a second. The CEO hesitated. He looked at the CFO. The CFO adjusted his tie. The silence spread. I sat in the back, logged into the call, technically terminated hours earlier. But the system hadn't revoked my access yet. They thought I was gone. I wasn't. The analyst repeated, sharper this time. The start date, please. Exact date. The CFO finally muttered, early June. He said it too quickly. His eyes darted away from the camera. The VC frowned. I opened my laptop. I had the record. I had the original email chain, signed engagement letter, and timestamp. I typed it into the private chat. One line. Just the date. The analyst's eyes flickered as he read. His posture stiffened. He pulled up documents on his end. The lead VC leaned toward his screen. His face changed. Confidence gone. He asked, who entered this engagement? The CFO stammered. We executed the agreement. The VC cut him off. That's not true. Someone else authorized this. I see it here. Director-level authority required. I knew the line. It was me. My name sat in the official contract. They fired me hours earlier. But legally, my role bound the agreement. The VC's voice turned cold. So you fired the person listed as primary compliance officer during the engagement? And misrepresented the date? The CEO tried to recover. Let's not overcomplicate. The results are clean. Everyone does minor adjustments. The VC's expression hardened. Minor adjustments? This is securities fraud. The room fell silent. The CFO paled. The COO tapped nervously on the table. The investors whispered among themselves on mute. Then the lead VC said 2 words. Shut it down. No one moved. The CEO forced a laugh. Excuse me? Shut what down? The VC leaned back. The round. The deal. The entire Series D, effective immediately. The screens lit up with chaos. Other investors nodded. Some logged off without a word. One typed a message, withdrawal submitted. The CEO's face collapsed. His confidence evaporated. He looked at the CFO, then back at the emptying screens. The analyst finally looked straight into the camera. Who gave us the real date? The CEO avoided the question. The CFO tried to speak but stumbled. I didn't unmute. I didn't need to. My job was done. Within minutes, the call ended. $200 million vanished in silence. The aftermath started fast. Emails poured in. Lawyers requested clarifications. The VC firm circulated a memo, material misrepresentation detected. Compliance breach confirmed. Investment terminated. Internally, panic spread. The CFO shouted in the hallway. The CEO slammed doors. Executives whispered in corners. The staff sensed collapse. Meanwhile, I stayed quiet. I watched. I had no obligation to explain. I had only sent a date. But that single date carried weight. It proved intent. They had lied. They had concealed. And they had fired the only person whose signature kept them credible. By evening, the CEO tried damage control. He called an emergency board meeting. He said it was a misunderstanding. He said they would re-engage investors. But the board already had the memo. They had the timestamp. They had my name on the audit engagement. They didn't buy his excuses. One director asked directly, why was she terminated hours before this call? The CEO stumbled. He couldn't give a straight answer. The director replied, then you've sunk us. The next day, regulators contacted the company. A routine notice. Request for records. Suddenly, the false statements weren't just a VC problem. They were a compliance problem. The CFO knew what that meant. He started shredding papers. IT teams tried wiping logs. But digital trails don't vanish. The audit engagement letter was already uploaded to 3 systems. My email was permanent. The CEO turned on his team. He blamed the CFO. He blamed legal. He even tried blaming me, though officially I no longer existed. But the documents didn't lie. The VC firm issued a statement to the press. They said they withdrew from a materially misrepresented deal. The headline hit financial news by noon. Shares in secondary markets dropped 30%. Employees panicked. Recruiters flooded LinkedIn with messages. Everyone knew what was coming. And I stayed silent. I let them unravel. The CEO tried one last move. He called me personally. His voice was tense. You think you're clever? One date ruined months of work. I didn't respond. You'll regret this, he hissed. We'll bury you legally. I ended the call. Because what he didn't realize was simple. I hadn't lied. I hadn't falsified. I hadn't sabotaged. I had only provided the truth. And truth, when timed correctly, carries more force than any weapon. The moment the lead VC said, "Shut it down," the call imploded. Cameras stayed on, but no one spoke. Executives froze. Screens went blank, one by one. Within seconds, the funding call that was supposed to seal the company's future turned into silence. I leaned back, watching chaos unfold. I had sent only a date. Nothing else. Just the start of the audit. That one number had carried more weight than the dozens of slides, financial projections, and promises paraded across the deck. It had exposed everything. The CEO didn't even try to control the room. His jaw clenched. His CFO shifted in his seat, sweat visible even on a grainy video feed. Investors didn't wait for explanations. They logged out. The lead VC was the last to disconnect. His final words echoed, "I don't fund liabilities." Within an hour, internal channels exploded. Panic. Messages flew faster than leadership could contain them. Employees demanded answers. Slack threads swelled with hundreds of unread replies. Someone leaked screenshots to industry reporters almost immediately. Headlines appeared before the day ended. Series D collapses amid audit discrepancy. Funding pulled in final minutes of negotiation. Internal whistleblower exposes irregularities. I didn't need to speak. The narrative shaped itself. Every unanswered question pointed back at leadership. Every silence from the CEO confirmed suspicion. Inside the office, managers scrambled to calm teams. HR sent templated emails about stability. No one believed them. People understood funding collapse meant only one thing: cuts. By midnight, my phone wouldn't stop vibrating. Former colleagues. Investors. Even journalists. All asking the same, what happened? I gave no interviews. I issued no statement. I had no need. The story was already bigger than me. My role was reduced to one action, sending a date. But internally, executives knew. They knew I had carried the audit schedule like a blade. They had mocked me as a token title, stripping me of power, removing me from key meetings. But they had overlooked one thing: audits leave paper trails, and my name was still attached. Within 72 hours, layoffs began. Contractors were the first to go. Then junior staff. Then mid-level managers. The company issued a press release about realigning resources to survive a temporary pause in funding. Everyone knew it was spin. The truth was simple: $200 million had evaporated, and the company had no runway. The CFO resigned quietly. The CTO followed a week later. Each claimed personal reasons. But insiders leaked the truth. Both had signed off on financial statements that could not survive scrutiny. The audit date had triggered investor review. It had shown that numbers were built on unstable ground. The CEO tried to cling on. He appeared in an all-hands, voice shaking, promising survival. His speech lasted 12 minutes. By the end, comments filled the chat. Are payroll deposits secure? What happens to our equity now? Who approved the numbers? Did you fire the one person who could have prevented this? He left the call without answering. I stayed quiet. Silence was my weapon. I had been fired publicly, mocked, humiliated. Now my absence said more than any statement. Executives had no shield. I was gone, but my signature on the audit timeline remained. Lawyers began circling. Subpoenas followed. The SEC opened an inquiry into financial misrepresentation. Emails surfaced. Deleted messages reappeared from servers. Every thread pulled led back to the CFO and CEO. Meanwhile, investors froze. No one wanted to touch the company. Competitors circled, poaching staff. Clients began shifting contracts elsewhere, unwilling to rely on a sinking ship. Desperation took over. 2 weeks after the funding collapse, the CEO sent a company-wide message blaming me. He claimed I had sabotaged the process out of personal vendetta. The attempt backfired instantly. Screenshots of my termination leaked, his mocking words, his smirk during my exit. The very line he used, "You're just a token title," spread across social media. It became a hashtag. Memes appeared within hours. His credibility shattered further. Reporters pounced. Executive blames fired employee for failed Series D. The narrative flipped. I didn't even need to defend myself. Public opinion handled it for me. Finally, the board acted. Shareholders demanded answers. With no funding and collapsing reputation, they forced the CEO out. He resigned in disgrace, citing family priorities. But everyone knew the truth. He had lost everything in a single call. An interim CEO was appointed, but it was too late. The company was weeks away from insolvency. I held silence until the right moment. When a journalist asked me directly, "What did you send on that call?" I answered simply, "One date. Nothing more." That was enough. My calm delivery contrasted with the chaos leadership had created. My story spread as a symbol. Sometimes, one precise fact can dismantle entire empires. By the end of the quarter, the company filed for restructuring. Layoffs reached 70% of staff. Offices closed. Competitors absorbed their market share. And me? I had already moved on. Before the collapse reached headlines, I had received quiet offers. Other firms knew what really happened. They saw not sabotage, but control. They wanted the strategist who could end a $200 million round with one action. I didn't rush. I chose carefully. The next position wasn't about salary. It was about leverage, respect, and recognition. I would not repeat the past. Looking back, it was never about revenge. It was about precision. I didn't scream. I didn't fight. I waited. I let arrogance do the work. Executives had written their own ending the day they underestimated me. They stripped my title. They silenced my voice. But they forgot the smallest detail, the audit date, tied to my name. That detail became the detonator. One text. One date. $200 million erased overnight. And with it, their empire. If you want more true corporate revenge stories, where arrogance meets its reckoning, and silence becomes power, make sure you subscribe to Revenge and Reveal.